Hi, this is Kate Magic, and you're listening to the Raw Living podcast. Raw Living is Europe's leading raw foods and superfood supplier, and I founded the company back in 2002. In this interview series, I'm talking to some of the people behind the brands that we offer on our shop to find out what exactly is the ethos behind the company. Not just the ingredients that they use and the processes that they use to create the end results, but I'm asking them other questions like how do they show respect for the environment? How do they treat their workers and their relationship to the farmers who grow the crops? All the companies that we work with are putting huge amounts of dedication and commitment into creating products that are benefiting not just you, but also the whole ecosystem, the planet, the people. And with this series, I'm hoping to show insights into that. When you're shopping with these companies, you're really not just investing in your health, you're truly investing in a better world for us all. In this episode, I'm talking with Mark Ament. He is the founder of Raw Food Bali. He set up the original raw food trainings in Ubud, Bali. Just start by telling me what brought you to Ubud initially in the first place.
That's a good question. So I came there in 2006, late, like
Wow.
November 2006. So I'm Daniel Aaron, and I are friends since 1998, I think.
Right.
So we're buddies, and we both were vegetarian. That's the reason we met. We met in Spain, actually, and we were both vegetarians. Two Americans in Spain as vegetarians was unusual. So that kind of drew us together, and then we became really close friends. And I would say, yeah, by 2000 or so, 2000, early 2000, Daniel started getting into David Wolf a lot and going to seminars, and I was traveling around a bit, so I started doing that too. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing what he was teaching at that point, because I hadn't heard much about raw or anything. So that really like made a difference in how I felt when I changed to eating raw vegan, like a big difference. So that was great for me. And
What year was this?
that was 2000, 2001.
Right. So early on. Yeah.
Yeah. And so Daniel and I stayed connected and friends, and it was a small community in the US at that point as well. I mean, and it kind of still is, although it's not, community is so weird now anyway. We could talk about that separately, but anyway, at that point, so we kept connecting. And I think, let's see, it was in 2004, he went to Ubud to start a yoga business, which he eventually did, which I'm sure you know about. And I went to New Zealand with my girlfriend, who later became my wife. And in New Zealand, there was a great opportunity to just like share raw food knowledge. So that was fantastic. That was middle 2004, and it really took off quickly. We did a bunch of classes, some workshops, some retreats, my wife and I, and also organized a raw food potluck that went from nothing to about 60 people in the Auckland in 8 months. People were just ready for it, at
Was
that
this
point.
in Auckland? Was this in the
Yeah.
city or right?
Yeah, well, we were in Devonport and then on Waiheke Island, both. So, but basically Auckland City, yeah. Although people came from all over. I still have some dear friends who live south, although not the South Island, but they live south of Auckland, and they would come up, drive 3 hours to come to these potlucks. So I was full on into it because it was just something so easy to share. because it had made such an impact on me, and I really enjoyed doing that. So the thing we did not know about New Zealand when we went there, though, is it's kind of cold. So
Mm.
um, we were there 2 years, and then in 2006, I'd seen Daniel. We had met up. My wife's from Austria, so we were back visiting her family in Austria, and Daniel happened to be in Europe, and we met up in Spain, again on Mallorca, and he's like, "Hey, come check out Ubud." And I'm like,
Mm.
"Really? Why?" He's like, "It's awesome. It's warm. It's pretty close to New Zealand. Just come up there and see it." So I did, or we did in, yeah, 2006, and yeah, he was right. It was warm and nice and quiet. Ubud was so different than it is. How long? You said 8 years you've been going, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, it was, I can't tell you how different it was. There were,
Yeah, what can you try? I'm really curious
I
to
mean,
hear.
yeah. So imagine this. So there were probably maybe 30 or 40 expats in all of Ubud area.
Right.
It was small. The street at night on any night after about 7 p.m. was empty. Um, in terms of like health conscious restaurants, there was Bali Buddha, of course, which has been there since late 90s, I think. And
Yeah.
Paulo, he was definitely big in that, the one of the.
Right.
But as you know, what Bali did have, and that's what Daniel was attracted to for sure, and then me too, and my wife, was like, it had an abundance of all kinds of ingredients that were fresh and, tropical and interesting, especially coconuts, durians, jackfruits, um,
Mm.
all sorts of greens. There's a lot of
Was there
place.
cacao then?
There was
Essentially.
cacao, but it wasn't much of a thing. I mean, David Wolf's book, when is that from? That was probably early 2000s.
2006 to yeah,
Yeah.
2005 maybe. Yeah.
So yeah, you could definitely get it. Ben and Blair from what was Big Tree Farms.
Yeah.
They had definitely started exporting cacao. So it was available, for sure. And of course, that's always a great entry into raw food because everybody, or not everybody,
Mm.
but many people like chocolate. Um, Pretty universal. So yeah, so I mean, we didn't go with much intentions, to be honest. My wife and I, we were kind of done in New Zealand, as I said, just cold, but weren't sure what the next
Mm.
move was. But when we got to Bali, there was a house near Daniel's house that was just being finished. And Daniel said, "Why don't you go talk to the guy? I know the owner." And we did, and the owner's like, "Yeah, I want to rent it long term." And we're like, "Okay, well, how much?" And he's like, "Oh, 40 million," which at that point was like 3,500 bucks for the year. So we just kind of said, let's just see what happens. Don't have much to lose, really. We did have that much money. We were done with New Zealand, didn't know where to go exactly, so that was fine to make that investment and say, let's see what happens." So because I had been doing raw food classes in New Zealand and retreats and, seminars and stuff, and my approach, I was less on the gourmet side and more on sort of understanding the theories behind it, and sort of,
Mm.
some of the research. I spent time at Gabriel Cousins' place in
Mm.
Patagonia, and he was a big inspiration to me.
Mm.
He combined spirituality and the raw food movement, and so that was
Mm.
more interesting. But of course, people want to know how to make the food, right? So I said, okay, I'm gonna start teaching some classes. So early 2007, like I think January. I probably still have the exact date somewhere, but I set up a rawfoodbali.com website and made a first class. And I was
Wow.
surprised that like 10 people came. Like I just put up flyers around the town. And um, I don't know if you know of a place called One World Retreats. Um, anyway, they're big into Ayurveda now, but Jan, one of the owners of that, he came. Megan Pappenheim heard about it. I think she sent her chef either the first or second class from Cafe, and it it hit fertile ground. And actually, I remember the first day I had the website up, even before the class, somebody reached out, like a tourist, and said, "Do you cater? Because I would love to have some raw food." So
Mm,
so we made a little menu and got them. So it was like from the get-go, it was just
mm,
very fertile ground. Um, at that point, to to run sort of a business, right, with it, or to have at least these classes. Beyond that, there were Daniel and I, um, mostly, yeah, us, our little group, did quite a few raw food potlucks at that time, or gatherings just for friends, and those started growing too. And about 2008, early 2008, some new people started coming in. It seemed like a lot of people came in then. I don't know why
mm,
exactly,
mm,
but there were more people coming, and I was I was still teaching classes. I was probably doing maybe two a month, something like that, all under the radar, all illegal, of course, from
mm,
the immigration perspective. But it was so small scale, it didn't,
mm.
you know, I wasn't too concerned about it at that point.
Yeah.
Later I was, but at that point it was okay. So then for me, what happened is, like I said, I wanted to do more the theory part and the organization of the website and the sort of designing the classes. That was way more fun for me. So one of the people who came uh, in 2008 was named Leah Rinaldi, and she was a really good chef. And she got excited about partnering to do the preparation part of the classes.
Yeah.
So we worked together for two years, I'd say, with her doing the prep part and me doing sort of the theory part on the classes, which was a lot of fun.
Mm,
And
yeah.
in that time, I mean, she taught like definitely Cafe, Bali Buddha. I can't remember. There were a couple hotels down in Seminyak, I think,
Right.
that wanted at least a few raw dishes. So we taught them chocolate mousse, like an avocado-based chocolate mousse. And that was great. And the chef there, he was amazed because he's like, this is better than regular chocolate mousse. And we're like, see, it's
Mm,
really good. So that was, yeah, that was kind of, that's it just really always continued to grow slowly, right?
mm,
From 2007 to 2010, I would say was, I mean, well, it depends what you say slowly. I mean, not that slow, I guess. Definitely supported us in terms
mm.
of business, but more and more people started coming. And Leah at one point left. I think she was young. She's like, at that point, she was like 24, 25, and she kind of wanted to move on. And so she
Mm,
left, and I was looking for somebody to take over uh, for like the prep part, and the easiest person is this amazing person named Rena, or YN. I always call her YN. She was our
yeah.
Pemba. She was
Ryan,
our
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, she was our Pembantu. And and I learned really quick, like she's
Mm,
super smart and super capable person. She's just
mm,
amazing. So she took over for Leah, doing classes with me, which was awesome. And
mm,
we did that for a
mm,
year and a half. And and what I told her, she almost didn't want to do, she didn't believe in herself enough. And I'm like, you know what, you're just getting paid like Leah did. We're just splitting it the way we did. She's like, no, no, but
mm.
I'm not. I'm like, I don't care. And she didn't want,
Uh,
I had to like convince her to take the money.
Yeah.
She's like, I just have to learn. I just have to learn. I'm like, no, I mean, yes, we all have to learn. Yes, of course. But you are talented and you are a huge asset to me because I could just, with her, like a prep class, I could say, okay, we're going to do these dishes. Um, and she would source it all, get it all ready, have it chopped up, ready to go. The only thing she didn't like to do is talk in front of people, in front of the
Mm,
Western.
mm,
That's changed now, thankfully.
mm.
So we did also probably, 25, 30 classes together all over the island,
Wow.
more in the South, sort of. This was like 2009, 10. Like people were asking more in the South as well,
Yeah.
which was kind of cool. And then I want to say it must have been like, what would it be? Early 2010, I gave a class where Shanti came, and
Mm,
Shanti and Anthony, but I forgot his last name. He's a really sweet guy. And she, of course, is a chef, right? Like trained, unlike
yeah.
me. And she was and vegetarian and just the sweetest person. So um she really got excited about the whole thing.
Mm,
And I shared in the class, I said, I think Ubud is ready for a raw food restaurant. And
mm.
you should make it. You should make it. I'm like, no. Um, yeah, partially because I didn't have any money to invest, and I would want to have done it right. And
Mm,
secondarily, because I didn't really want to run a restaurant, to be
mm,
honest.
mm.
It was hard. But Shanti, along with Anthony, and I think James, who's still involved with alchemy
Yeah,
somehow,
yeah, yeah.
they made a little group and and um and set up alchemy. I don't know the exact date, must have been 2010 or early 2011, I guess,
Mhm, mhm,
that they started that, which was, of course, really exciting. And, for those of us like who were into raw, like having another restaurant, where a place to go, awesome, right? It was fantastic to think. And this one would, at that point, was all raw. And
mm,
we were really, yeah, the community, this sort of small raw food community. And don't get the idea that there were hundreds of people then either. I mean, we're talking, I don't know, 25, 20
mm,
people who were maybe
mm,
into raw. Um,
mm.
so it wasn't a huge amount of people, but we were, those of us who were into it were all excited. And it started, getting more known. I mean, things like Bali Spirit Festival started happening,
Mm,
and there would be raw, cacao on offer. And I think it just started spread knowledge that there's something happening with raw in Bali, right? That
mm,
something going on in sort of the online communities and just general raw food communities about that time. So that's, yeah, that's kind of where, about early 2011. So my wife and I unexpectedly had a child in 2009. We were both
oh,
40. So we were
oh,
not expecting that. And that was, of course, a tremendous blessing. Um, and she didn't feel like we could stay in Bali because it was too hard for her. She's
mm,
Austrian, so
mm.
very,
Right, right.
very like bugs and disease,
Orderly. Yeah,
just freaking her out, which I understand.
yeah.
So we decided, okay, we need to go back to, or not back, but we decided to go to Austria because that's where her home was and wanted to be close to her
Mm,
mom. So so that's kind of where I stepped out for the most part of the daily goings on of the Ubud raw food scene. But what I did do, and I don't know if you know this one, if you've heard of this, but alchemy was getting going, and Shanti was working hard. She was managing most of it. But um, when we left, I did make sure that YN got on there and was able to contribute. And I think, I mean, to this day, she's been with him now, gosh,
Yeah.
20, 15 years almost, probably.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she's such an asset, and it's been so good for her to see, you know, to benefit from her talents in that way. And but I went back, I did the other thing I personally did, I would do sort of detox and cleansing retreats called Fresh Start Retreat. I did those at One World Retreats. I probably did 15 or 20 of them. But I would come back to Bali, like after we left to Austria, I would come back every 6, 8 months and lead a retreat. So I was up until probably 2016, I was kind of, you know, observing the amazingness that was happening in terms of the raw food. It was fantastic. I was like, this is great. I loved it. The place. And you're right, there is nothing else like it. You're so right. I live now in Southern California, San Diego area, and you're right. LA used to be good for it, but we just went. We were just a month in Bali at YN's house in last June and July, and I was like, "This is heaven for me." It's like, well, I made it. You know, I didn't make it personally, but you know, it's exactly
Right.
So I was like, okay, we could go to Alchemy today, or we could go to Sayuri's place, or any other even little places now, like little, you know, little local places have something on offer that's, you know, like suitable and edible and tasty. And so I'm thrilled that it's still such a hub and a mecca for raw food. It makes me super happy to see that. And I think it will continue to be just because it's like, if you want to learn, that's a great place to go, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Learn raw food, and also just be in a loving, interesting, vibrant community.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for listening. You can check out the products we've been talking about by visiting Raw Living, rawliving.co.uk. And if you haven't got an account already, then do sign up. You get £5 off your first order. And also, please do like, subscribe, and share this podcast. It really does help.